So, as per usual, our quick disclaimer: if you have not seen Arcane, do yourself a favor and go watch it. It's the best thing in the last decade that I've seen, and it'd be a shame not to watch it. This show is an absolute masterpiece. We're going to be covering a spoiler review off episode 8. We're at the halfway point, and this show goes by so freaking quickly. 40 minutes just zips by. Not a single frame is wasted. Nothing is wasted in the show. Everything is relevant. So we're just gonna jump right into it. So we open up with the flashback of Mel. We finally get her like backstory like told to us, and yeah, she's most definitely from Noxus. Gonna had suspicions about that like last episode and since she appeared, but yeah, she's most definitely from Noxus, and we get to see a flashback from when she was little, and her mother is educating her about war, right? And she's trying to groom Mel into becoming becoming an excellent leader, right? And she's asking Mel like how she would rule, because I'm guessing this flashback took place in a capital city that Mel's mother probably just captured, right? Because I say that because she brings in a girl who was a part of the old regime and asks Mel what they should do with her. Mel, being young, says that, oh, we'll show the people that we are merciful. We'll grant her amnesty. And then Mel's mother is like, there is no mercy, and just cuts the old leader's head off, saying, there is no mercy. Right? And, it's a harsh lesson to teach Mel, but she kind of got the point, and it just shows how they handle. They're two different people and how they handle things. Whereas Mel's more diplomatic, Mel's mother, on the other hand, is more brutal in her approach to things. Because by Mel's mother's logic, I'm just gonna call her Mama Madarda. By her logic, like if she like kill one, you you spare thousands. If you let her live, then thousands will have to die, because she's a symbol of the old regime, and as long as she's alive, that's gonna like stoke the fires of rebellion. So you get where she's coming from, and that's just a choice that you have to make to avoid like total war. So I got what she was trying to get at there. But Mel, um I believe she didn't really internalize the lesson too well, or she still had her own opinions about that. So I'm just gonna, since I'm on it, I'm just gonna go ahead and just cover Mel's storyline and just cover storylines until we get to the meat, like I normally do. So we get reintroduced to Mel's mother, who is an absolute beast, Mama Madarda. Love this character. I'm wondering if she shares the same voice actor as the League of Legends character Alawi, because I kind of hear it in there, but I'm not too sure. But she's an awesome character. She's experienced and battle hardened, and it just shows like in her character design. She just has the drip. Like she owns every single scene she's in, completely spotlight stealing. And she's finally arrived in Noxus. Mel meets her, and she's like, oh, you didn't have to meet me at the gates. And then she's like, why are you here, mother? Like, I haven't seen you since you exiled me. It's been over a decade, so like 10 years. And she just shows up on Piltover's doorstep. She's there because she got word that the city is in turmoil, and it's gotten Noxus's attention, and she has her, like what I thought before, she has her eyes on Hex Tech and its applications to be used as a weapon, which is yeah, that pretty much ties into what I was talking about before. Yeah, so Mel's very protective over Jay. She's like, you know, the city is under my control. You have no power here. Like, we will handle it without you, and I don't want your help. Right? These two don't see eye to eye. There's just like family drama and tension, and Mama Medarda tells Mel that her brother has fallen. Like she wasn't keeping an eye on him, and he ended up getting killed by someone who has a lot of power. I think around this time, she might be talking about Swain. They never say who killed Mel's brother, but it might just be Swain and his ascension to power in Noxus. That's the only thing I can think of that would make sense. But I guess it's kind of good that they didn't really say who it is, because it opens a lot of possibilities where they can go with the timeline and Mel's character if she becomes a champion in the game, because I know there's a new support that's supposed to be released that has a lot to do with like money. So it might just be Mel. We'll see. We will see. And what's the last time we had a Noxus champion? Do I really consider a real Noxus though? Anyway. Yeah, so just going further, Mama Medarda she's off to sample the local cuisine. She lets, her daughter know that she's there to help. And she just goes off to do her own thing. She's chilling. She's eating. She's drinking good wine, like lounging, eating good food, sampling the local cuisine, right? And she even requests a meeting with Jace. Jace goes to meet her, and she's in this like big hot tub. Not hot tub, it's like a heated pool or something like that, and getting massages by her male concubine, I guess, and trying to instruct Jace about the goings on in his city. Now Jace runs his mouth a little bit, but she stops that, right? And she gets up, she's man, this woman is like built like a brick shit house. Like, she has scars on her back, and she walks tall. She's a very proud woman. I want to look up who her voice actress is, because whoever voiced this character should win some type of award. Like, whenever she speaks, I just feel inspired. Like, I'd follow her into battle and take a spear. But yeah, man, Mama Medarda is awesome. So she instructs Jace that he needs to get his city under control, lest he end up like some person whose history she was telling him about. Unless he wants to get his throat slit in his sleep, he needs to get control of the city, which transfers over to later on Jace's change in mentality when he's at the council, when the council members are discussing the problem that Zahn's becoming. Jace is more aggressive in his approach now that Mama Medarda has talked to him. He's like, yo, we need to do something about this now. The people down there are getting out of control, this, that, and that. And Mel is trying to go for a diplomatic approach. He's like, hey, we can't just go down there full force, like swinging. Like, they're people too. We still have time to negotiate with them, right? And it's kind of, she's trying her best to temper Jace, but just based off of Mel's like expression, she's just like, oh my god, she talked to him, didn't he? Like, she knows that her mom has influenced Jace just because of how she's acting. You can see it on her face. So like, I forget these are like animated rigs. I'm like so invested in the story. I'm like, these are real people at this point. They're real people with their own like issues and their own problems, and they make their own decisions which affects the story as a whole. So yeah, this is before they're arguing, right before Caitlyn and Vi get in there. So before we get to that part though, let me cover Heimerdinger's story. I didn't know I needed this, but I'm glad we got it. Heimerdinger and Echo, what a pair. Like, Heimerdinger managed to make it back to no. Echo managed to survive the blast that Jinx did when her grenade went off, right? And I guess he jumped off the bridge and he ended up breaking his leg or something like that. He said he sprained his ankle. That's what he said. He sprained his ankle. So he ends up making it back and meets Echo because he sees a little hoverboard over there, and he's like, the trim on this is kind of off. But Echo's like, you're wrong. It's because the air is denser down there, which shows that Echo's, he made those hoverboards. He's a scientific type. And so Heimer has that kind of kinship going on with Echo now because they're both scientists. Echo is one of the smartest characters in the verse. For his age, I'd say Echo beats out Jace and Victor just because of his feats with time. But he's not Echo Prime like we know. Like we know in the game, he hasn't like created the Z drive yet, which is a huge deal because there's only one other like time mage in the game, and that's Zillion. So yeah, so I feel like it's gonna be an important step. Heimerdinger like reconnecting with the city of Zon, because you see Heimerdinger like moving about the city and he's just taking it all in. He's like no longer on his ivory tower. He's down there with the common folk and the filth and the muck, and he's seeing what he let his city become. And I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted to happen. He's getting that slice of humble pie. Because I said before, Heimerdinger is a part of the problem. He was willingly part of the problem. Through his inaction, he grew complacent, and he pretty much that speech that like Silco gave, the Kim Barons also applies to Heimerdinger. He forgot where he came from, right? So yeah, I like that Heimerdinger got humbled in this episode, and I can't wait to see where Echo and Heimerdinger's relationship goes, because Echo's taking Heimerdinger back to his place. I don't think they showed it, so that might be in the next episode then. But yeah, I'm so happy. I didn't know I needed that. So yeah, back to whatchamacallit. Let's go back to let's go to Vi and Caitlyn's storylines now. So Vi and Caitlyn, they make it a well. This is like skipping back to the beginning into where we end up, where they're in the council room. So Jinx pulled a switcheroo, which is funny because that's like a Q&A game called Switcheroo. She took out the hex crystal, so she had it the entire time. So it turned out that the container was open, or at least I still think it was, because she had it, and they did all that for nothing. Vi and Caitlyn, because they came back to Piltover empty-handed. So Caitlyn no, so Vi helps Caitlyn sneak back into her house and get into her room. Caitlyn's mom kicks in the door and is pointing the gun. She's a beast, man. The what's it called? Kiramans or something else. So they ask for a word with their daughter, and Caitlyn's telling them, like, hey, like, it's bullshit what's been going on. We need to do something about this. There are people that are sick and starving, and their streets are filled with drugs and Zon, and we've been complacent. We let this happen. So Caitlyn's mom understands her daughter. And she's like, okay, I'll get you an audience with the council, but you have to do the rest. So, flash forward to the council. So Caitlyn and Vi get there, and, Caitlyn's telling them what's been going on, and she's like, hey, this is Vi. She's from the Undercity. She saved my life. And she's risked her life to show me what's been happening in Zon, and you guys need to hear what's going on as well. They tell them about the shimmer that's being like mass produced down there. They tell them about the starvation of the people, the sickness that's plaguing them, and it's all their fault, really. It's like what do you do? Like, it's either you die by not following the orders of a Kim Baron. It's worse knowing that your government doesn't give a shit, and no one gives a shit about you down there. It's like Zon is a miserable place, but as we've seen with Echo and his gang, it's not completely hopeless. The city has good in it, and it has just as many brilliant minds as Piltover does, because they have to struggle through adversity. Piltover's the city of progress, right? But Zon is the other half of that coin, though. If there's no Zon, there's no Piltover, right? So those cities are interconnected. So Caitlyn and Vi tell the council what Silco wants, right? They're like, he wants Zon to become he wants Zon to become an independent nation. That's his end goal. That's what he wants, right? because he doesn't want them to live under the tyranny of Piltover. And the council's like, what? We can't give them that. Maybe we can still negotiate or something like that. And Zai, what's her name? Vi loses it. She's like, don't you get it? It doesn't matter what you say. Silco hates you. He wants you gone. Like, it doesn't matter. And, Vi, I don't remember it verbatim, but Vi's just giving this speech saying you can't negotiate with Silco, because Vi has every reason to say that, because she knows Silco. She hates Silco, right? And Vi doesn't want to negotiate. She wants to go in swinging. And you know what? I feel like that mentality, I feel like Vi's right in a way, but she's also wrong. That's the thing about this character, and the whole politics of this situation is very interesting. Because on one hand, I'm like, the only way this stops if you go in and take out Silco, but at the same time, Silco's just, he's just one Hydra head. There's always going to be someone to take his place, and because as a viewer, we know the other side of it. Silco isn't that bad, not really, in a sense, especially like the affection he showed in this episode. Like, I'll get to that part though with him and Jinx, but it's like Silco's not that bad. I mean, sure, he's flooding the streets with shimmer and stuff, but one, he's creating jobs where there weren't any. Two, these people know what they're getting into. Three, he's building an army so he can go to war with Piltover. Like, you understand his motives. Just because he's a bad guy doesn't mean he's a bad guy. And I'm over here talking like I'm a Silco sympathizer, but it's like, it's a complicated situation. It really is. But Jace agrees with Vi, right? But Vi's getting mad that they're not going in guns blazing like she wants them to. So she leaves, and Miss Kiraman gives Caitlyn her permission to go after Vi. And they have a moment in the rain where it's like, yo, just forget about me, Cupcake. We're like oil and water. Piltover and Zahn, they're like oil and water. Caitlyn's like, what about us? Sorry, it wasn't meant to be. And they go their separate ways from now. You just see Caitlyn just kind of heartbroken in the rain. I'm just like, why did they make that scene so cheesy? Like, it made it seem like they were two lovers, like, destined to not be with each other or something like that. Like, I don't know if that was intended, but I don't know. I don't know why we get romantic undertones like that, because their relationship isn't romantic at all. They just met each other. It's like, what the heck? Why was that necessary? I felt like they could have at least talked about it a little bit more, but we got to drive the plot forward, because Vi doesn't leave Piltover. Jace is frustrated as well, so she meets Jace in her lab. In his, not his lab, the forge where he makes hammers at the Talus, smithy or whatever it's called, right? And she's inspecting the gear, and she gets her hands on the Atlas gauntlets, and she's like, you hate Silco just as much as I do. Like, screw the council. Like, when we got out of there, Caitlyn trusted you. She said you would be the one to do something about this, right? Like out of all people, you should be the one to actually help, because you have the power to do it. So what do you say? Are you in or are you out? So, she holds up the gauntlet, and, Jace obviously accepts the deal, like, to go in swinging, finally, because, while he was in there, he was actually forging his Mercury hammer, finally. Like, finally, he is Jace he's still not the Jace as we know. He's still not the dick that we know, right? I wonder how we're gonna get there. I feel like with Jace's character, he's the type that's been moldable this entire time. Like, there are people trying to mold Jace's personality to suit them, But I feel like what's gonna cause his like transformation is one, his eventual estrangement with Victor, and two, him just being fed up with everyone because you see his like frustrations with the council, and I'm like, okay, there are hints of the Jace that we know that are bubbling up because of his frustration with it all. So that's gonna come to a head, um, sooner rather than later, or at some point anyway. So anyway, Jace and Vi team up and they go and take out Silco's lab. Well, not a lab, it's more so like a shimmer factory. One of the kids, so they raid it with the enforcers, right? And one of the kids breaks loose and they activate the emergency like response, and they release the chem tanks. Yeah, they released the chem tanks, and if you didn't know, that's actually an item in game. It's called something turbo chem tank. The turbo chem tanks. It makes you go really fast, and yeah, I think it just got reworked too. But yeah, it makes you run really fast. And those guys in the tanks, they were moving. It was actually terrifying. It reminded me of like Predator chem tanks singed. Oh my god, these guys were just that fast. But you know, Vi and Jace have the power of Hextech on their side, so they make quick work of the chem tanks. And Jace gets to flex his Mercury hammer, and he's just taking guys out like left and right. But we get a reminder, you know, once he switches to his and from his hammer stance, he switches to his cannon stance, right? And he's just mowing these guys down. But we get a reminder that there are actually people in those suits. And, you know, one of the civilians, one of the kids actually gets caught in the crossfires of Jace's blast and takes a hit head on. While Jace is like, actually sees the collateral that's happening now, and he goes splat to the bottom. And it's like, damn, that's the price. That's the price of war. That's the whole theme of this episode. It's like the price of war, right? What are you willing to go to war over? What are you willing to lose? Are you ready to see the consequences of war? Like, there's just so much, like, actions have consequences, right? Because even in the beginning of the episode, like, when Jace saw dead bodies for the first time, he vomited, like, like over the railing to the bridge. He's not used to war, and that's what, like, he doesn't know war, like Medarda does. That's what Mel was trying to tell him. He's like, you don't know war, Jace. I do, and it should be an absolute last resort. And it came full circle now. She knew exactly what she was talking about. His mother was trying to, Mama Medarda was trying to get Jace to war, right? Whereas Lady Medarda, Mel, was trying to get him to avoid it because she knows the horrors of war. And Jace got to experience it firsthand when he killed a kid. Like, not even like an adult. They actually showed him killing a kid, and they made sure that we knew that that kid was wasted, dead, because not only did he take a blast from Jace's, like, you know, his cannon, a blast from Jace's cannon head on, they made doubly sure that there was no plot armor with this kid, because he went over the railing and fell all the way down in the silos. And when we hear his back snap when he goes splat on the pavement below, it's a pretty fucked up scene, and I love that they did it. Like, because honestly, I haven't seen that since like Game of Thrones. When was the last time we saw them kill a kid? I'm not over here bloodthirsty. I'm just like, I'm happy they went there because it nails the message. This is what war looks like. And you see Jace's face, like, he's just like, did I just kill a kid? Like, it's like stormtroopers from Star Wars. Like, you know, you cheer when you see these stormtroopers getting mowed down because they're the bad guys, but you forget that because you don't see their face, there's an actual human on the other end of that. And for all he knows, there could have been children inside those turbo chem tank suits. We don't know. I don't think there were children, but still. there are people on the other end of that. And as you see, when Jace goes down and looks at the kid's body, and he looks up and he sees all the children that were working in these factories, it's like they're all kids. They're little people, and they have to like spend their lives growing up down here doing this, pumping the drugs that are killing the city, and it's just like it's fucked. But I'm happy that Jace gets to see that. Like, just like Heimerdinger, Jace has been like in the politics of it all, and he's grown disconnected. Like, he's always been a Piltovian. Jace never gave a fuck about Zahn. But this is the first step to him like growing a conscience to their plight and actually seeing what they have to go through. I love where this is gonna go, because it's like, because Jace is still soft. He's not a warrior yet, right? Sure, he has great intellect, but he's not like these other champions like a Noxian. He's a scientist first, and that's what Victor was trying to tell him. Like, hey, we aren't fighters. We're scientists. We're supposed to help people, not hurt them. So I feel like the death of that kid is gonna affect Jace in the next episode, because why wouldn't it? Because he strayed so far from what he was trying to do. One, he created a weapon, the Mercury Hammer, with the intent to go to war, right? Even though like him and Victor's original vision was to help the common people, but here he is making tools of destruction. I can't wait to see how that's going to affect them, because it's just taste. Because think of it like this: people die every day down there in Zon, and just that one kid was just collateral that Jace just so happened to see. Think of it like this: just like Heimerdinger, Jace's inability to act and actually do something about the problems that him and Victor were supposed to be working on anyway contributed to this mess, and that one kid dying. Like, their inaction kills hundreds of kids. Think of it like that. And I love that they showed it. There's just so much. I could actually make a separate video about this one scene and talk about the whole climate of Zon, and not the politics, just the whole goings on just leading up to it. Because Zon is an interesting place. I actually love like the whole Piltover Zon dynamic. Like, that's a whole video on its own, so I won't get too much further into it. So let's touch on the Victor subplot now. So Victor, I think I just kind of woke up the house, because there was this one scene with Victor where we find out what happened to him after he took Singe's upgraded shimmer, and he got his leg back. Although it's like kind of like this organic metallic looking leg, it's otherworldly, most definitely. It's void like. And speaking of void, like, the hex core even changed. It's more organic looking. It's scary looking. It's void like. I have no idea what's going on there. I kind of guessed it, like, since the first whatchamacallit, couple episodes of Act 2, but it's confirmed more or less that that hex core is connected to the void. If magic can think and adapt and whatever, the power source where magic comes from might just be the other dimension where the void creatures are at. Because I think in the lore, the Watchers reach through and try to influence people from the void, but I'm not sure if it's through like Hex tech or just magic in general. I forget. I gotta look at the Void lore again. There's a lot, but it's also kind of vague. But it's interesting. But yeah. Anyway, during this scene, Victor runs finally. Like it, it was such a powerful scene because we've seen Victor this entire time, from when he was young with Sky to where he was running after his little boat and he fell because he can't keep a stride because his legs fucked up. So to see Victor like drop the cane and just take his first couple steps without it, and he just starts running, I'm like, and he just starts going, he just starts like sprinting, and I'm just like, run, Victor, run, yes. And then you feel it too, like you're there with Victor. He's like, this is amazing. For the first time in my life, I can run. Like, we take so many things for granted, like having both arms, being able to move a certain way without falling over, without injuring ourselves. There's just so much we take for granted, like even our ability to simply walk down the street without assistance, just stuff like that. And to see Victor just go, man, you feel it. And even he lets out like a yell. He's like, yeah. And just as he's running, I'm just like, man, I almost teared up at that scene because I'm like, I'm just like, I just thought back, like, in situations where, well, I don't want to bring up the past, but it's like, there was a time where I thought I would have to, like, lose one of my limbs in order to live, and it's like, fuck, I felt that. But shoot, man, good on Victor. So, with that, that victory was huge for Victor, and he wants more. He's like, this is amazing. Like, like, I've changed, but it's for the better. And if I did it once, I could do it again. So he goes back to his lab and starts carving his body with more runes, runic symbols, and he intends to make a full change to himself this time, judging by how many symbols were on him. But one problem. He's all out of shimmer. He tries to give himself another injection into his body, but there's no more. And where he injected it before was for his leg, and that was the only vial he had that Singe had given him. But he decides he's going to go through with it anyway, so he touches the hex core. And while he's doing this, Sky is on her way back. Apparently, she's been working on something that he really wants Victor to have and to see. Because you hear her like inner monologue. She's like, Victor, I've been working on something for weeks, and I wonder if you could help me with it, or just different variations of the same thing, because she's in love with Victor, and that's so sweet to see. But Victor never noticed it though, and it makes it even more tragic with what happens next. Where she's like, Victor, everything you do inspires me. And, Victor, it's like she's writing love letters in her head. But this thing she's bringing Victor apparently is important for her. She wants him to see her research that she's been working on for a year. And I think we don't get to see what it is, but I think that's going to be a catalyst for Victor's whole philosophy of glorious evolution, because whatever she made I believe it was to help Victor, because out of everyone, Sky has been watching Victor this entire time, his struggles, his interest, like, and I think it would be something to improve Victor's quality of life, so I believe that would be a gesture that Sky would do in order to show her love for Victor. So, and thinking ahead, we know where these characters end up, and I'm wondering, because he's not the same Victor from the game, not yet. So I'm wondering if the reason, like, connecting what we know from the film universe to the game universe, I'm like, so is this the reason why Victor eventually divorces his emotions? Because the lore differs from the game. The film has taken the series has taken like liberties with that. So I'm wondering if that's where they're going with this. Like Victor's eventually gonna start renouncing his humanity and replace it with metal to cover up the pain that he's feeling from what turns out to be Sky's loss, because Sky sees what's happening inside of Victor's lab, right? And she tries to go save him. She's like, Victor, and she tries to pull him away from the hex core to save his life. But Victor was channeling the power of the X core because he had runes on his body. So he's like a conduit for that power, right? And Sky doesn't have any runes on her body. So what ends up happening is Sky ends up absorbing whatever's flowing through Victor, and she ends up, getting the same like metallic look that happened to Victor's leg, and she ends up turning to dust because her body overloads and she can't handle it. And the scene that happens next is just so heartbreaking, man. Victor wakes up, right? And he just sees Sky's gone. It's just her glasses, her clothes left, and on the floor, her research notes, and just dust. And Victor screamed, man. He's just like, Sky, no, you can't. And he finally, oh man, that scene. Victor didn't know what he had until he lost it. He didn't know he was loved like he was until he lost it. And that's the last we see out of it. Because, the screen goes black there, but it's like, Victor's, next episode, I'm sure Victor's obviously going to read the notes and whatever and see whatever Sky's been working on. I think that's going to be the precursor to the Glorious Evolved, because it has to be, because it's for Victor, right? I believe it's to make his life better in some type of way. So we'll see what that is. But yeah, man, Sky, she didn't appear like very often, but she was obviously of significance to Victor in a way because of his reaction when he got turned to dust, because they're childhood friends, right? They came from the same place. So if anyone had rapport with Victor the most, it was Sky, because she's from Zon just like him. We saw them when they were kids and they were playing at the little quarry right before Victor met Sin. So he lost one of his close friends and his connection to the past, essentially. So yeah, I feel for Victor. He's my favorite character in this show. I wish we had more Victor. Yeah, I wish we had more Victor. Because I want to see, like, his change. Because now he's just so, like, innocent. But now, both Jace and Victor are going through it. Like their whole character arcs just kind of, they mirror each other. Jace killed a kid and lost something, and Victor killed his assistant, his childhood friend, and lost something as well. And I'm pretty sure both these events are gonna change both Jace and Victor. They're two sides of the same coin. They always have been. So yeah. So on to the meat. Now that I've covered Victor, I've talked about Heimer, I've talked about Echo, I've talked about Caitlyn, I've talked about Vi, and I've talked about Jace, Silco, and Jinx. Lost the name there. So, Silco and Jinx. So, from the very beginning, theory turned out to be correct. Silco was the one to get to the bridge first. Vi came back, but she was too late because enforcers started showing up and she couldn't get back across the bridge. But Silco got there. As I said before, he knew to be there because he knew Jinx was going to do something about the blockade on the bridge. He gets Jinx and he takes her to Singed. Yes, nailed it. And he's like, Doctor, you have to save her life. And then Sin just like, I'll try, but are you ready to lose her? And then Silco is confident that Jinx is gonna make it through, and he's like, she won't die. Jinx can't die. And he even gives her a kid. Like, Silco loves Jinx. He loves her to death. Like, I can't even be mad at Silco. Like I can't. Like this entire time, I'm like, okay, I'm simping for Silco just a little bit, but it's like it's understandable. Like because he just proved it to me now. It's like, no, you have to save her. It's not like you have to save her. She still has work to do. It's like, no, you need to save her life, Doctor. Please don't let her die. He loves Jinx like his own daughter, right? That essentially is his daughter. So it's like, yeah, so Singe gives him something for his sanity so he doesn't have to see what Singe is gonna do to Jinx, right? So he straps Jinx down, injects Silco with something to put him to sleep while he does his work. And, Jinx wakes up during the operation and then she's screaming, she's begging for the pain to go away to make it stop. And then Singed is a bastard. He's just laughing over. He's like, oh, it's gonna be, I know it's painful. And, there's more to come, I'm afraid. And just keeps injecting her and she's screaming and it's terrible. Oh, and my own personal headcanon for this, I think Singed used his ultimate. Because if you don't know in the game, Singed's ultimate is called Insanity Potion, where he increases his armor, his resistances, and increases his health regen, and it also gives them like grievous wounds. I think it makes them a little bit faster as well. So yeah, that's my head canon. That Singed used Insanity Potion on Jinx. So he uses the upgraded Shimmer as well to save her life. So Insanity Potion. I feel like that's just a perfect that's just perfect. That ties in perfectly to like Jinx's passive and stuff that we know as well. The speed she gets it from Singe because that's what Singe takes and all that. So that's awesome. So yeah, the operation is a success. When Silco wakes up, he is pissed because he doesn't know where Jinx is, and then Singe is just like, "Oh, I saved her life. She's out there somewhere." Singe just provides the science. Whatever they do with it, that's up to them. Which is Singe is such a bastard, man. Even in the lore, people don't like this guy. It's like he's responsible for the origin stories and the tragedies of like 20 champions in the game. It's actually insane. Insane. It all goes back to Singed in some way. Such a bastard. And a little tidbit of lore that he dropped that's new to me while he's talking to Silco before Silco passes out completely. He's like, I had a daughter once. And that just blew my mind. The Riot, you can't just be having characters drop bombshells like that. Singed has a what? A what? Dude is like 200 years old. What do you mean he has a daughter? It's actually insane because the only other character. What do you mean Singed has a daughter? That's a huge deal. Because the only thing I'm thinking of, the character that immediately came to mind, I'm like, who the hell could Singed have? Who came from this man's loins? What character could they possibly introduce that came from Singed? And then the more I thought about it, my mind went to my next favorite character, next to Victor in terms of like lore, Oriana. Now hear me out. It would fit like I know in League of Legends lore proper, Oriana has a different father. She's not related to Singed at all, right? In fact, she's her own character that has her own story. But since the series, the TV series, has been taking liberties with the lore, I think it would be quite fitting if Oriana turned out to be Singed's daughter, right? Which would explain Singe's motivation for extending life. Remember, that's a huge part of Singe's character, right? Singe's character, extending life, right? Now, if you were to flesh him out and make him more dynamic as a character, in terms of motivation, why would he need to be extending life? What if it would instead of for himself, like it is in the lore, his motivations were completely like selfless at one point before he became like a true monster, right? Because he wanted to save his daughter's life. Because in the lore, we know Oriana, she used to be a normal girl who was the daughter of this of a of an artificer who worked with like Hextech and stuff like that, right? Hextech is new in this universe. It literally just got introduced. So it's like, okay, what if Singe wanted to extend her life and try to save her, but he just didn't have the technology yet? Until like he couldn't save her through chemical means like he normally would. So he's probably been keeping her on life support like he's been doing with Rio, the salamander, who he uses to produce shimmer. So it's like, okay, that would make sense, right? So, but with the introduction of Hex Tech, Singe would actually have the means to save Oriana by replacing her piece by piece, right? In the lore, Oriana's father replaces her body, you know, because she gets ravaged by poison. The poison set her in Zon. Now, what if it was Singe's fault? If they change it to make it so that it's Singe's fault that somehow she got, you know, exposed to poison. Now he's trying to save her life, and that also feeds into Singe's whole like champion kit in general involving poison. It's like that. So it's like I'm thinking about it more and more. I'm just like, oh my god, did they just tease Oriana? Like if they're changing Oriana's lore for this, I'm down for it because Oriana has some good lore. And I like her character. She's unique in a sense. Because, you know, in the lore of the main game, Singe was kind of against Hextech because you know he does like chemical stuff and like, you know, transfiguration, pushing science to the, you know, with the human body. But what if you were to deviate from that? That's just a theory of mine. I got too excited when I thought of the prospect of Oriana being introduced to the lore. But with Hextech being introduced to the city as well, then in the way that it has, it just makes perfect sense that that's a perfect transition for Ori to come into the story. So yeah, as I said before, Singe just provides the science. He provides the means. Whatever the people do with it, that's up to them. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of like in game, like where you even the sharpest of minds will still chase Singed in his poison. They make that choice to chase Singed themselves, am I right? So it's the same thing in here. You know, he just provides the means. Yeah. So yeah, Silco doesn't know where Jinx went. Neither does Singe, because he doesn't care. So yeah, Jinx is loose, and the last we see of her, Caitlyn is taking a shower, thinking about Vi, and she's sad. She lost her girlfriend, and Jinx is there. The camera pans out, and you see Jinx like drew the monkey, like on, you know, she used the steam to draw the monkey on the glass. You see the camera pan over, and the steam clears, and you see Jinx open her eye, and it's finally pink. So we might be moving towards Jinx proper, like we know from the lore. So that's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna get started immediately. This episode was good, and the last episode is the episode 9 is the finale. So let's just jump right into it. I'll see you during the next one. Let me know what you thought down below. So comment, let me know, and leave me a dislike to let me know you care. Bye now.